Hello and welcome to another video where I look into units that I feel are a bit underrated. This time we'll be looking at Lilina from the Binding Blade. Lilina is the daughter and heir to Hector of Ostia. Now admittedly, compared to say Azama and Fates, I don't really feel like Lilina is an obscure unit like he is. But I mean, people who have already played this game probably are aware of Lilina, regardless of their opinion of her. Azama is just kinda there. Lilina is the daughter of another Firearm Lord and the childhood friend and love interest of Roy. The thing is, though, while people are aware, there's a good chunk of players that think she's a bad unit, which I just find really strange. In this video, I'll be diving into the main reasons why people will say she's not worth using, and countering those points with what I've found to work with her. So to start with, probably one of the main issues people have with her is her join time. Lilina joins the player's army in Chapter 8, locked in a cell unarmed, but as long as you keep her out of the archer's ranges, you'll be fine. You can just talk to her with Roy, and that'll net her a free Thunder Tome, though I'd recommend bringing a Fire Tome too, personally. The main issue here is she starts out at level 1, 5 chapters after you get Lu, the first anima mage in the game, so he's probably going to be level 7, level 8, something like that. A lot of people will say, well, I've already given Lu several levels, so why bother with Lilina who is at level 1? Well see, Lu is more of a speed-oriented mage, while Lilina favors magic. I find Lu to usually have no issues doubling typically, but really struggle with doing enough magic damage. He tends to almost one round, just not quite get right there where you want him to. This isn't to say Lu is bad, part of this is more just a matter of preference. Anima mages are really good in FE6. It is a reliable 1-2 range on every main tome in the game. Anima magic is also very accurate. FE6 in general, one of the biggest hurdles is hit rates being, well, not the greatest, and this is even more the case in hard mode. Additionally, the Air Caliber Tome is amazing as it's an effective tome against flyers. FE6 throws a ton of wyverns at the player, especially in the second half of the game. I find Lu perfectly serviceable, but if that's the case, why would I argue for Lilina instead? I find Lilina easier to fix. Lu, if anything, will not get enough magic. Unfortunately, energy rings are both not very abundant, but also the fact that he's in competition with pretty much every other unit in the game for it, potentially. This is because this is before the age where Fire Emblem split up its magic and strength stat, where you would have, energy drops for strength and spirit dust for magic. That is not the case at this point in the series. So, of course, there's plenty of units that will fight him for it. Speed wings are just much more common and available, even earlier in the game. And yeah, while everyone benefits from speed, I find most units scale well enough in speed to where it's not that competitive for Lilina. Most of your physical units that aren't things like armors will eventually hit the speed threshold they want to hit. You might think, but Sultan doesn't arguing to give her stat boosts hurt her? Why not just give these speed wings to someone like Wade or Laud or someone else like that? Because besides the aforementioned benefits Anima Magic gets, magic damage is amazing in FE6. Very few enemies have good res, so you ideally want to hit the enemy's res stat. Physical units, even hard-hitting ones, usually aren't quite as good for the raw damage, without factoring for criticals, of course. And usually, they're also on axe users, some of the least consistent hitters of FE6. By the Western Isles, Lilina can easily be doing near 20 damage per hit. Now imagine that times 2. That's around 1 rounding range. I personally think that is worth the investment. And here's the thing, even if Lilina isn't doubling these enemies, a lot of players like using snipers like Klein and Igren. Are they always doubling in 1 rounding? No, there's plenty of times they're not. Players use them for chip damage and maybe the occasional crit one-shot. If they're good for chip damage, then why not Lilina? I'd argue Lilina is even more so. Except she has close range as well, she's got 1 range, as well as usually just better hit rates due to anima magic being a bit more accurate than bows. Even against flyers, she can use Air Caliber. Now you're probably thinking, okay, sure, maybe Lilina does that chip well, but there's something those two snipers in particular have over her. They join with 0 investment whatsoever. They don't cost any promotion, items, or any levels or anything like that. Already promoted and everything. This comparison is apples to oranges. Lilina is difficult to train, unlike them. One of the most common arguments people have with Lilina is she's really weak and difficult to train in her join time. And yeah, she does start out weak. But to say that she's difficult to train for her join time, I respond with skill issue. I know it sounds bad for my argument, but unironically, yeah, she does start out weak, I will admit this, but she's not hard to train at all. She's really not. She joins in Chapter 8, on a chapter with tons of choke points to pick off enemies from behind a wall, behind a tank of a unit or something. I mean, heck, the game throws you Barth in the very same chapter. You have units that can tank, and she can just kind of hide behind and poke from 2 range. A huge thing people forget is you literally need her to unlock the Gaiden, the first guy in the game, for the Durandal. If I'm saying that wrong, forgive me. You need her to get that Gaiden. You literally need her to survive this chapter to get the Gaiden. And said Gaiden is absolutely designed with Lilina's training arc in mind. Like, this is literally her map. And the map is exactly what a unit like her needs. A map with not all, but many enemies that are rather passive. They don't really move much. This makes it so the player can take their time and train weaker units. The EXP isn't as competitive as you'd think either, because you might be just thinking, oh, let's go, all my units need that EXP. Not really. Your main units, like, say, Allen, Lance, Rutger, Deke, they're probably around level 10 to 12, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. And the enemies are just not really giving them much EXP. Giving them the kills just isn't really that worth it when newer units like Lilina and OJ just gain way more EXP for their kills as they're lower level. Why get 5 EXP on your carry when you can get 5 levels on a new unit? Why not? There's a chance, even if you think this unit's bad, she might get some good levels. So, the second half of Chapter 8 and the entire Durandal Gaiden are honestly great for catching Lilina up to speed. By the Western Isles, Lilina is almost always caught up with my main army, and her damage keeps up quite nicely there. Enemies are bulky, and honestly, some of them are kind of fast, and few units are reliably deleting the fighters, pirates, and brigands here. So it's not like people are just stealing Lilina's kills or something like that. Like, there's plenty of kills Lilina can get here. Those enemies are pretty bulky. They're gonna need hard hits to go down. One fairly good point people make, the guiding rings are tight in FE6. There's not many of them. Why give it to Lilina, though? Why not use another healer? Why not on Ellen, Clarion, Sol? Why not them? The healers first and foremost. The tome use isn't really that useful, whereas your mage gaining staves means another healer, and another healer is far more useful than a mediocre second mage. The healers can mostly wait a few chapters to promote, and they're still just about the same viability, and your only main competition besides the healers are going to be Lu and Ray. But if you're using Lilina or you're using Lu, you're probably not using both at the same time. There's nothing wrong with using both at the same time, but you probably aren't using both. And Ray, he's probably not at a high enough level for at least what I would consider. I mean, some people like to early promote. I don't like early promoting. I promote at level 20, and my Ray is pretty much never level 20 by the time I get my second guiding ring. Definitely not by my first. As she promotes, Lilina gains staff access with a lowly E rank. Now this is usually pretty bad. However, it's not quite as bad on Lilina as it is for most of the other mages. See, well, sadly Lilina will never likely reach physical warp rank unless you're just really spamming heals on her. One issue most any other healer in this game has is just relying on stronger staves to fully heal units in FE6. While most other units will need a mend or maybe even a recover to top off units, especially in the late game, Lilina's absurd magic means she can do the same work with the E-rank heal staves just fine. So Lilina can also keep up on EXP with healing as well as her combat and post-promotion, as she's just really good with even the weak staves. She literally outperforms your actual healers, at least in close range healing. People say Lilina is horrendously slow, and I'm nearly at 35% speed growth. It's not great speed growth. I won't deny that. I would argue, though, that units like Rutger only have 30% strength growth. I would say Lilina should have around 12 speed around promotion, usually. That is, again, like I said, I like to promote at level 20. Some people don't like to do that. And if this game gives you a ton of EXP, why not get those cheaper unpromoted levels? I don't understand this argument of people being like, oh, you gotta go early to promote. Promotion gains are great. I still do tend to give her the first speed wing. She gains +3 speed on promotion. Again, great promotion bonuses. That's usually enough to not be doubled, especially if you're giving her that speed wing as well, because it's +5 speed. That's a lot. That's usually enough to not be doubled. And even as late as K, Lilina is strangely enough one of your best units for damaging nomads. I know it's not just absurd, but hear me out. Because your main units that are doing damage to them, and actually just sweeping them, not just damaging, but actually sweeping, just one-rounding them, they're only gonna be a really well-trained Rutger, Fear, Sue, or Shin. It's only units like those, the ones that can actually double nomads and nomad troopers, and there's very few units that can do that. Due to just her absurd damage and accuracy, she's actually doing fairly well to the nomads. she's usually near one-shotting them from full HP. Understandably, many people avoid Sakai like the plague, but my point is, even in a place many people consider to be the hardest parts of the game, she's actually still pretty solid. Additionally, if her speed ends up good enough, you get a little bit lucky with her speed levels. FE6 is one of those rare Fire Emblem games where bolting is actually not that heavy, and you can, yes, rather feasibly double with it. I know it sounds crazy. Of course, with Lilina's magic stat, that is a terrifying idea. Oh, you got like a 25 to 30 magic Lilina at this point in the game once you get the bolting tome in chapter 16. And that's terrifying. Like, you're seeing a sage with really high magic that's hitting with you bolting, you're terrified, you're very scared. Even if she can't hit the doubling threshold with it, she can neutralize nuisances your armies would otherwise struggle with. Lilina also has a fairly good luck growth. A void is determined from both a unit's speed and luck. In the right setup, late game Lilina can get around 90 a void, which is enough that most enemies that use less accurate weapons like lances and axes, she can just dodge an adversary enemy phase, which late FE6 is surprisingly heavy on. Think like the Murdoch chapter, the hordes of wyverns. In a forest or a mountain and in range of good support, only the wyvern lords will have hit on her. I'm not saying it's 100% safe, I'm not saying bank on it, but I think she cleans the mess up most efficiently out of most units. So you can do this with units like Gonzalez. It's probably a bit safer with him, but he doesn't clean up quite as well because his hit rate's just not as good. Do be aware she probably won't double the Wyvern Lord, sadly, but one-shots everything else with the Air Caliber. You don't have to do this with her, but I personally like it. I like giving her an Angelic Robe, so even if she does get hit, she doesn't die in one shot. Angelic Robes are just so abundant in FE6 that I feel like it's hardly really an, oh, he's giving her a stat booster, preferential treatment sort of thing, because everything that isn't a magic unit in FE6 gets massive amounts of HP. Lilina is not really fighting many units for more HP. She's really not. My main final point is that she's one of the best boss killers in the game. Up there with units like Rutger. And yeah, it's not because of her crit. She's just got absurdly good hit. Anima is great. I can't emphasize enough how good Anima is. And she can abuse her 1-2 range. FE6 Thrones are notorious for giving a whopping plus 30 avoid, as well as just the defensive boost that they give. Lilina is fantastic at whittling down and killing these dodgy bosses. Some of the most irritating bosses in the game, she's actually a good answer for. Bosses like Henning in that Gaiden that I mentioned earlier, and especially Kel, everyone's favorite FE6 boss. She fares much better than most of your army. Even a lot better units than her. A lot more durable units, units that are faster than her. They don't match up well against Kel. But she does. I never really have issues with Kel because Lilina is just such a good matchup against him. And honestly, the other mages are too. Like, in all fairness, they also do well. One other thing to note is that she often can kill Manicheets without even the need of the Foreblaze. Or at least get very close so someone else can finish it. And she does it at 2 range too. Like, she can just do this at 2 range where they can't retaliate her. And she saves a legendary weapon usage oftentimes. Lilina does have access to a plethora of supports. Like, I think she's tied with Roy for the most in the game. She has support with Roy, which is the fastest in the game. So even if you don't really like supports taking a long time, she actually gets really fast supports with Roy. She also supports with Bors, Barth, Wendy, OJ, Astor, Cecilia, Gonzalez, Garrett, and Marcus. And she mostly just wants a support that'll give her a void. I usually just go with Roy. With all that being said and done, hopefully I've changed your mind if you thought Lilina was just not worth it or just terrible. And I will see you guys in the next video.